Hi, and welcome to another episode of our Indie Author Spotlight series, where we're joined by talented indie authors and shining a light on their amazing work. So today I'm joined by Chiemeka Nicely. She's an indie author whose stories are based in Afro-Futurism, a genre of literature that combines elements of science fiction and fantasy, as well as African culture. So today we're going to be talking about her book, The Masterpiece. So I would like to first of all welcome Chiemeka.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're very thankful that you're here today. So how have you been?
I've been all right. Yeah.
That's good. So tell us a little bit about The Masterpiece and the Shadow ICAS series.
So the masterpiece is in a world I've created called a Surfer, where there were six dynasties, but due to the civil war, now there's only one. And so the story follows Princess Calista of the first dynasty. She takes her first assignment to Kamar to better understand how the sixth dynasty disappeared during the civil war. But in doing so, she's finally able to breach the walls that have always contained her and to see outside of her civilization and what she could learn. So she embarks on this journey, which is meant to bring back knowledge to her civilization, but also it's like a self journey for her to develop herself and to unlock certain things that are within her.
So speaking of the six dynasties, did you pull from African history, legends, or culture to craft these six dynasties and their unique culture aesthetic?
So I mainly pull from Egyptian civilization, which was known as Kemet. So I take the dynasty foundation and try and create something out of it.
So Callista, as a protagonist, has a unique journey within the book. What tools did you implement to write her?
I mainly use myself.
So,
The way that I like to write is a way of expression, and it's things that I can't normally communicate by my tongue. So I'll just write them into my novel, and I will pull from movies and TV shows that I'm inspired by to help me mold her environment, as I'm very much interested in virtual reality or just futurism and technology and how that would shape different planets outside of like Earth and just more in the universe.
that's pretty unique. So could you elaborate on the research that went into the Bulka legend and a bit of the technology? I know you mentioned that you did a lot of research on Egyptian culture. So what did that process look like?
It mainly looked like reading historical books like When We Ruled or just various other non-fiction books, as well as YouTube videos that would help me frame my mind around how Egypt would have been in terms of the dynasties, but I also like to pull from my aunt and her teachings to help provide a base for the value system, which is mainly prominent uh, in the sixth dynasty, as they refer to more to spirituality, whereas in the first dynasty it was more technology. So there's a bit of that conflict.
As you were doing this research, did you find that you learned anything new about African history as it is that maybe surprised you and you fed into your storytelling?
I would say yes, but at the time I wasn't so focused on the history side of things. I just mainly wanted the structure, and then
Mm.
I would develop it as I go along because I was very much still new to having to craft a whole story and then have that as checkpoint for my universe.
Mhm. Her brother and her lover are basically assigned, to research any possible threats to a surfer. So could you elaborate on the characters' personal relationships and how that fed into their growth throughout the story?
Okay, so because it's two different assignments, they're in two different locations. So for Calista, she embarked on her assignment as a solo journey, whereas with the Kari and Kari, they took on a combined assignment to Earth. And then somewhere down the line, when Calista encounters difficulties, she relies on that relationship with her lover as well as her brother to kind of like provide a sense of safety and like rescue for her to like fully like not become succumbed to the nature of her new environment. So she's mainly felt a little bit outcasted in like her wider society. So she values the relationship with her brother and her lover, and that's always been like a safe space to help her to like just get through things. But I would say like she only really changes once she comes to the realization that she can't always rely on other people to do things for her.
Mm. I know you mentioned that you did pull a lot from your personal experience to feed into this character, this main protagonist. Do you think that some of the things that you've just mentioned are a testament to some things that you've gone through in your personal life? So, for instance, you said that she realizes she can't really rely on people, so she has to develop her independence a bit. To basically fight for what she wants and finding herself within the story. So would you think that is an accurate assumption to make as a reader?
Um, yes and no. I grew up a lot more protected because I have like both parents in my family as well as my siblings. So I
Mm-hmm.
always felt like sometimes I wasn't able to fully express my own mind, and I would also just um allow other people's thought patterns to shape my own. So I did apply that to Calista because she is in that kind of protected environment where she's a princess. She has all those that cater to her, but at the same time, she's very different because of the abilities that she has and the nature of those abilities being something of like a bad omen if you was to like go back into the history of a surfer and like the dynasties. So in a way, yes, me and her do share that similarity between being very protective and just striving for our independence, but needing to like step out into new environments to like accomplish such a thing.
I think a lot of readers can resonate with that, what you've just said, in different aspects as well. So that's really fascinating for you to elaborate on. Um, so, in terms of the games, um, with the world building, what kind of character development tool were the games as you were writing them? So, for instance, it's kind of a place where you have to maybe go against your morals, maybe for killing. Um, so, how do you find that within your story that was a world building tool and a character building tool that how did that impact your characters?
I mainly also utilize the Savage games as a way of expressing the nature of this new reality where these people aren't supposed to be on the server, but because of whatever happened in the past, had to like utilize that space to essentially express themselves. And so by Callista um, moving in that space, she had to learn that there are different lifestyles that she could encounter, even if they're not like, even if they don't originate from her homeland.
And with the with her being exposed to this, because obviously she's been pretty sheltered, and then she's in this kind of arena where she's being exposed to all this different things that are happening with people colonizing. Do you think it kind of shifts her perspective on the world, and how do you portray that to the reader?
It very much did shift her perspective. There was
Mhm.
one aspect in a chapter where she came to the realization through her opponent that she had life a whole lot more easier and she didn't like she wasn't as grateful of her circumstances until she had to encounter something different. And then that's what helped her to like empathize with a character called Tamika, who she then faced off against in the Savage Games.
Mm. And do you think that translates over to the current African diaspora in in the world? For instance, like even though we're all from Africa or like different places, maybe we don't have the same experience. Do you think that was something that fed into it as well?
Yes, because sometimes we get trapped in our own bubble and then we think that
Mm.
that's like the whole world. I remember when I was younger, I was like that. I would think, oh, London is this massive place, and that's literally all that shaped my thinking until I step outside of that, and then you come into contact with other lifestyles and perspectives that helps you broaden your horizon, and then you end up cherishing different things within your life and striving for different things as well.
That's pretty unique. So there are like a lot of spiritual quotes at the beginning of each chapter that reflect what is to come. Could you explain what made you, as an author, put those spiritual quotes there at the beginning of the chapter instead of like at the end, and how that ties into spirituality and the research that you did?
Ideally, when I was writing, sometimes people may not fully grasp what I mean about like the whole tone of a chapter.
Hmm.
And although I wanted most of my meanings to be like subliminal, I personally utilize quotes to help like motivate me in certain aspects in life. And so I wanted that to be utilized alongside the chapter to help the reader to understand like the overall theme or emotions that go into this novel that would then be translated over across the whole series and essentially the universe as a whole.
Hmm. So there's a lot of themes based on the reviews that the masterpiece has gotten. Um, a lot of your readers are picking up on a lot of fantasy that is mixed in with like contemporary. Is that what you were aiming for?
In a way, yes, because with magic, it's like there's always this limitation, but I wanted to expand on that and to give like the underside of magic, which is normally just energy, and how that's abundant, but depending on the vehicle that it goes through, that's when it would enter like limitations or abundance.
Speaking of the magic system within your book, how did you go about creating that and putting limitations on it that is both realistic but at the same time draws your reader in?
It's interesting, really, because I remember when I used to do like chemistry classes
Mm.
or like just science in general, we would utilize like the Bunsen burner, and then they'll tell us how to use it and to produce the different flames. You'd have the red, orangey type flame. Then above that, you'd have like the more pure and very fiery blue flame. So I got the blue flame from that essentially, and I just wanted that to be like an essence of like what could be locked away in one's DNA, especially if you're drawing from like the elemental system where you have earth, wind, fire, and air. I wanted to utilize fire and have that be something that's not just in nature, but it could be tapped into through one, like unlocking their DNA.
That's a really amazing way to go about it because you drew from, your experience within um, high school and your real life experience to feed into your magic system. So what kind of writing tools did you use when writing? So for instance, a lot of indie authors, do you find that they use a lot of like Word or Google? Did you have any um, Google Docs? Did you have any other tools that you used that you would recommend to other indie authors, or that you would do differently?
Mainly use Scrivener, and that helps me to like just characterize different aspects of my story. So it'll be like theme, the character arcs, or like the different subplots or stakes and conflicts, which will just help me to just see everything all together. And yes, just Scrivener, um, Microsoft Word was very plain, but alongside Scrivener, I have like a phone notepad, and it's like whenever the ideas would come to me, I would literally just jot it down in this like little category, and then that would like help me to, when it's time to like sit down and write, to be able to like just focus on one aspect and be able to like expand on that.
So do you think you're more of a prancer, or from what you've just said, you sound more of like somebody who likes to plot their whole story ahead? So where do you sit within that?
I used to call myself like a discovery writer
Huh?
because literally my ideas would come from my dreams, or I could just be walking or like working and ideas would just drop into me. But then as I've gotten better at trying to refine my craft, it's like I've started to shift a lot more to plotting, like just certain aspects, just enough that I have the main framework, and then I allow literally anything to just work its way through the story. And a lot of the times I find that it does help with seeing the story on a macro level. And then when it's time to like write down the story word for word, then that's when like the discovery part just takes over.
I've never heard of that method, discovery writer. So did you maybe that's just because I haven't come across it yet. How did you come across that discovery writing? Or is it just something that evolved in the way that the ideas just flow to you, and then it's just the way that it is?
Yeah, I remember when I was like just surfing the internet trying to like develop my writing, because I started off being one that did trial and error to help me
Mhm.
translate the images in my mind to words. I would just be like searching the internet trying to find a more technical term for what I was doing. And then I
Mhm.
just stumbled upon Discovery Writer, and I found that a lot of other writers are like this, such as like Nedi Okorafor. She's she just has ideas that just moves through her, and they have like
Mhm.
this whole motion to it. And once you're in that flow state, it's very helpful to just get the words down. And you don't really need to plot much until after the draft has been completed. And then you like apply the theory aspect to what you've already practicalized.
So how would you so once you've got all your things plotted down, and you've got all your ideas together, did you ever use any critique partners, or anybody to have a second pair of eyes on it before you took it into editing?
Yeah, I utilize somebody that I know in the community called Michelle Asantiwa. She's an editor, and she also has her own business called Ways Wide Words, I think is how it's pronounced. And I would utilize her services to help me um, just see my story from a different perspective and aspects that I needed to work on, because I was still like refining my craft at that time.
Now that it's been published, is there anything that you would do differently?
I would have had more patience. I felt like when I was younger, because I started writing online, it's just
Hmm.
like wanted to move to the next stage. So I quickly just l- did a bit of research on the internet to help me understand the how self-publishing is, or indie publishing. And then I just went through the whole process, but in like a very quick way. And if I went back, I would have taken more. They've essentially just had more patience with the editing side of things and not only trusted that I knew how to edit on like a basic level and to utilize the proper services for the editing. So then I wouldn't have to keep on re-editing the masterpiece even after I'd already published it.
Hmm. It's fascinating that you would say that because a lot of indie published authors that I've spoken to, they've also highlighted that aspect of the self-publishing process that they underestimated. They don't tell you how extensive editing is, and I think a lot of people say that they would do it professionally, just to save them a lot of
Mhm.
time in the future. So it's kind of cohesive. So regarding your book cover, it's very beautiful. How did you go about that, encompassing first of all what the story is about, and then what you've pictured?
I hired a US business called Amanza. They were
Hmm.
very good at like just grabbing hold of fantasy covers and making them into something very beautiful like what I've got here. And
Hmm.
I essentially just told them that I wanted the main focus to be on a black girl and for her to have like the blue flame either in her hand or around her, and for her to be like in the universe or in outer space to help depict what the story would be about.
Yeah. Speaking of, the story and encompassing everything, how would you say that growing up and not having a lot of stories that are Afrocentric in nature, or having a lot of characters that maybe resemble you, or the people around you, how did that impact you then becoming a self-published author, an indie author, and really focusing on the Black diaspora?
I remember when I was younger,
Hmm.
it's like I would read a lot of books, and as I'm reading them, I just found I was injecting a lot of my own ideas and like changing the storyline. And I remember stumbling across Toni Morrison's quote, if there's a book that um, doesn't convey what you want to see in a novel, that you should be the one to write it. And I would utilize quotes like that to help me just embark on the self-publishing journey and realize that I have a gift too. I have a way of storytelling as well that I find missing in the current book market. And I wanted to also be the one to like control my whole narrative. Hence why I like created Nicely Publishing to like help facilitate that and to also like just inspire other um, young Africans and of the diaspora to feel empowered to tell their own stories from their own perspective, and they can be at like the center of it. And it doesn't have to be framed around like other races of people or like oppression and slavery, but they could be like one or like superheroes or on their own hero journey to like accomplish great things.
Speaking about, myself as, growing up and, being surrounded by sci-fi and the genres and everything like that, and not seeing not only yourself, but people who look like your friend group. Like my friend group was made up of different, people from different cultural backgrounds, and to not see that in books or media, it was just very jarring. So you
Yeah,
creating Nicely Publishing, and publishing this story and bringing it to the forefront, it's really inspirational, and it is, I feel like indie publishing has enabled those stories to come to the forefront. Would you agree with that?
I would. I found like I feel like there's not much um people that are able to like publicize their stories because as we know, like traditional publishing is very hard to get into. You're almost always gonna end up in like the slump pile or get rejected. So I find that it's a whole lot better if you have a story and you have a way of doing things. It's better to like embark on that journey to help yourself like develop in that area to then be out there in the world. And you can even create your own like social media account with your own like community, and they can help you with their own ideas and their own like feedback to encourage you to continue on that journey.
That fed into the question that I was going to ask you. So, were you always into sci-fi?
Um, I would say so, yeah. I was mainly inspired by like The Matrix or like Blade Runner. So
Mhm.
those were like my main inspiration.
Yeah. And then, would you say your culture heavily fed into, doing something different with Afrofuturism? Because, Afrofuturism is a genre of literature that is emerging. Not a lot of people know about it. Um, and also as an indie author, it's difficult to get your story out there to um so did you think did you think that there was a niche for this story, or what was your thought process in that?
I did think that there was a niche for it. I grew up in like the UK Black community, and I found that there we did have a lot of books, but they were mainly like on the non-fiction side of things. And I wanted to craft stories that would be fictional, but at the same time very real and stemmed from like reality. And although there were other authors that are in like London or the UK that do things like that already, it's like there's not enough of us. So it's like I wanted to bring up the numbers and to help promote this on like social media, or through like just creating a whole universe where in the future I'll be able to bring on like aspiring writers or just already established authors to help like grow this whole universe in the same sense of like how you have Marvel or like DC.
Mm. So would you say that your cultural background heavily influences your writing style?
Because I wanted to see more of myself in my story, just like how other Black children want to see more of themselves in like the positions of like heroes or those that have this innate gift that they want to like share with their community or with their world to feel like empowered and like seen.
Powered and seen. That's amazing. So what do you hope readers take away from your work? I know you said you want them to feel empowered and seen, and I actually want to double back to a statement that you made about a lot of stories that present that are presented to African or Black culture are centered around slavery and gangs and I don't know, like it's refreshing, I guess, to see this different take on not only science fiction and fantasy, but Afro futurism as well, just the Afro culture. So what do you hope that your readers take from that?
My main hope is for my readers to like see beyond their reality, because I know that a lot of people get very depressed in like generational curses or like oppression and slavery and racism. But I want them to see much further than that. I want them to like expand their thinking beyond like what is very contained, and to see a future where they are able to like reclaim their past glory, but on a different frequency and a different it's just something more more than what is like given to us. I want them to understand that they are able to shape their future and to like control the narrative and to like be just be the creators rather than to be told, oh, this is who you are, this is your story, and that's all that you can ever amount to, but that you can always go higher and that you can always expand yourself.
So you've mentioned a couple of books here and there that influenced you. So what are your top 3 biggest literature influences?
It's weird. I felt like when I was younger, I reached this point where I stopped reading, and
Mm,
then I just became more of a avid TV show and movie watcher. And even with those, I don't really have anything that's like a favorite of mine.
mm,
But obviously with the Black Panther hitting the screen, that became more of a inspiring moment for me to have my books be adapted in that field. And I do like to reference authors like Octavia Butler or like Toni Morrison
mm,
and even just Nnedi Okorafor, who are in like the African futurism space, and to draw from them to help align myself in their area and to help like make this more of a mainstream thing than to just have it on like a minority scale. But I will say that there is one novel that I wouldn't classify it as like Afro-futurism. It's more just like sci-fi or like black sci-fi in a way, and that would be Najeji's. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but Najeji Richards' novel Asylum 54.0,
mm,
where she combines like humanity with a bit of like robotics and like has the technology in that area.
mm. So with the technology and everything that you've written within your story, do you see any technological advances being made in the future?
I feel like it's already started
Mhm,
where they're trying to implement like neural links and just having bits and pieces of like technology be combined with like humanity. And although I don't really mention this at the moment, I mainly just draw from like AI being like a helpmate and something to um, assist one in creating different versions of themselves to help conduct their duty or their services in the dynasty or in the universe.
um, so how do you balance telling compelling stories with incorporate Afrocentric themes within, the masterpiece?
I mainly strive to like utilize different laws, such as like the Hermetic laws, where you have the law of vibration, the law of correspondence, the law of gender, as well as like my art laws to help me just frame how I wish to look at the world building. And then I would have like the different story aspects, but combining it is always a bit of a tricky one that I'm still learning how to do. But I try to like learn new things through the different cultures in Africa, which is in like YouTube videos or just searching what I don't know on the internet, and then I'll categorize all of this on like a document, and then I'll refer back to it as I'm writing the story, and then include it as I go along.
So that feeds into the question I was going to ask you about how you approach world building in your stories. I know you mentioned Black Panther being the first time that you maybe saw Afrofuturism on a kind of global scale. Tapped into spirituality, and that fed into the technology and helped really world build. Like for instance, the choosing of a new king. It's heavily entrenched in tradition and culture, but that really helped with the world building and incorporated with the technology. So how have you gone about that with the masterpiece?
The masterpiece, I didn't really have world building at the forefront when I was creating it. It's
Mm-hmm.
more like the world building showed itself to me as I was developing the story. And I knew that I wanted it to have its roots in like Kemetic symbology. So have like the Eye of Horus and like the Ankh. Then I would utilize that to be like a bit of technology for like the elite supreme warriors. As far as the whole world is, the supercontinent is based off of like Pangea when all the countries were connected. And it's just small minor things like that that I would use for like the first novel. But crazily enough, the world I've created in the first novel, as I was writing it a few years ago, I knew that I wanted it to be like half developed because I knew by book two, that's when like the real nature of the world would like show itself. And so I didn't really put much thought into like the world building at the time. It's more as like the years have gone by and I started to like plan out the series a whole lot more. That's when I'm seeing like the world building take over a lot more in terms of like the environment being different to what has been set out, where you have like the six dynasties, they're all on this supercontinent, and then you have the kingdoms, but then all of that is supposed to crumble as we progress through the series.
So that was our interview with Chiemeka Nicely. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing more stories from you. And thank you very much for coming on to the Now Nakazzi platform. And we really enjoyed this interview. So thank you very much.
Thank you.